A group of people goes on a trip by plane, but the plane crashes on a snowy mountain. There, the injured passengers struggle to survive for months. Let's dive into the story. At the start of the movie, we see a group of friends playing handball. One of them yells, "Robert, pass the ball." But Robert doesn't listen. He keeps running because his focus is elsewhere. Daniel, another player, gets frustrated and says, "If you had passed me the ball, we would have won this game. Because of you, we lost." Robert defends himself, saying, "I've helped us win every other game, and now, just because of one small mistake, you're all scolding me?" His friends jokingly pull at the bandage he has wrapped around an injury. Just then, Macho arrives and announces, "Whoever wants to go on a trip this holiday, come to me and pay the fee first. I won't keep reminding anyone. And if you want to bring someone along, you can. There are still plenty of seats on the plane." At the airport, we see the entire group, Macho, Robert, Kasten, Noma, NATO, and many more. Alongside them, several families are also preparing for the trip. One father tells his son, "Take care of your mother and make sure she takes her medicine on time." The boy reassures him, "Don't worry, Dad, I'll take good care of Mom." Everyone is excited to enjoy their vacation. They are heading to Santiago. Before boarding, Noma asks a girl to take a picture with his camera. He loves capturing memories and doesn't want to miss any moment. As the plane takes off, the passengers are laughing and having a great time. But Noma is still busy with his camera, taking photos of everyone. Suddenly, an announcement comes over the speakers. "All passengers, please fasten your seat belts." But one guy says, "Wait, take my picture first. Seat belts can wait." Little do they know, their journey is about to take a terrifying turn. As the plane suddenly jerks, Noma exclaims, "What was that?" The man sitting in the seat in front of him replies, "Don't worry, it's nothing. These are just the warm Argentinian air currents colliding with the cold mountain winds, creating a suction effect that pulls the plane slightly." As he is explaining this to Noma, another jolt shakes the plane. The man reassures him, "See, I told you. It's normal for these kinds of jolts to happen here." He then takes out a piece of paper and a pen to illustrate how the suction effect is created. Just then, an announcement comes over the intercom, informing passengers that they will be arriving in Santiago soon. The announcement instructs everyone to fasten their seatbelts as turbulence is increasing and the crew wants to ensure everyone's safety. Meanwhile, we see NATO coming from the boss's room, but suddenly, the plane begins to descend rapidly. The force sends NATO crashing into the ceiling. Noma yells at him, "What are you doing up there? I told you not to go. Why do you always rush to explore everywhere?" Panic spreads throughout the plane. We hear a woman say, "We should have never boarded this flight. I warned you not to come here." The plane keeps plummeting at an alarming speed. The pilots increase the engines to full power, trying to pull the aircraft up, but it struggles to regain altitude. Everyone is terrified as the plane cuts through the clouds. Noma looks outside, his large eyes fixed on the view. Just then, a ray of sunlight strikes his eyes, making him squint. For a brief moment, it seems like the plane is back on track, but in just a second, disaster strikes. The aircraft crashes into a mountain, shattering upon impact. The lower part of the plane gets caught in the icy cliffs, splitting the plane into two halves, one on one side of the mountain and the other on the opposite side. The passengers are in shock, their minds filled with a single thought: this might be our last day. The heavy snow on the mountains causes the wreckage to slide downwards. The plane sinks into the snow until it suddenly comes to an abrupt halt, as if brakes have been applied. The sudden stop causes passengers to lurch forward, breaking their seats. Those who were strapped in are thrown forward with their seats, resulting in severe injuries, some breaking their legs, others suffering neck fractures. Noma looks down at his hand, which is badly injured. Meanwhile, a few survivors begin clearing away seats to rescue the wounded. Macho asks Robert, "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" Robert replies, "Yes, I'm fine, but where is Kasten?" The remaining survivors start searching for their missing companions, crying and shouting in despair. Noma continues helping those in need when suddenly, a voice is heard from outside. The pilot is alive. He's still breathing. Daniel rushes over to the pilot and urgently asks, "How does the radio work?" The pilot was unable to speak, but then the voices of people screaming and shouting for help grew louder. "Save us! Save us! We are still alive!" Some people had been unconscious, and as they regained consciousness, they too began to scream. At that moment, the pilot said, "Bring Kuriko to me." Daniel approached him and asked, "What is Kuriko?" But before he could say anything further, Robert interrupted, saying, "Let's go. We need to save the people." They left the pilot in his condition and rushed to help the survivors. However, Noma kept looking back at the pilot. The pilot tried to speak again, so Noma brought his ear closer to listen carefully. The pilot whispered, "May God protect you." Hearing these words sent chills down Noma's spine. Now, the scene shifts to nighttime. Inside the wreckage of the plane, the survivors had propped up their bags as makeshift walls. Inside, people were crying out in agony, unable to bear the freezing cold. The temperature was so extreme that glass bottles left outside began to shatter. Noma shouted, "Nobody sleeps. If anyone falls asleep, they will die. Stay awake and keep moving." Some people had already died, while others clung to life. Next to Noma lay a severely injured man. He screamed in pain all night, but by morning, he had died. His mouth remained frozen open from his final cries. supplies. Noma, Robert, Kasten, and the rest of the group moved the bodies of the deceased aside. Now, they sat down to eat the little food they had left, but it was clear that their supplies would not last long. They needed help soon. It had been one full day since the plane crash, but no rescue team had arrived yet. The next morning, as the sun rose, the survivors stepped outside to escape the cold and allow the injured to absorb some sunlight. As they sat outside, they suddenly heard the sound of an approaching plane. The moment they heard it, their joy knew no bounds. "I saw the plane's wings move. Maybe they saw us," shouted Zion. Overjoyed, the survivors jumped and cheered, thinking they were finally going to be rescued. But their happiness was short-lived. One of the boys remarked, "Even if they saw us, they could have dropped some food for us." To this, Daniel replied, "Even if they had dropped food, it would have sunk into the snow and been wasted." Daniel tried to keep everyone calm, but deep down, he knew it was a false hope. He wasn't sure if anyone was actually searching for them. As evening approached, they braced for another terrifying storm, just like the one from the previous night. The bitter cold returned, and survival became even more difficult. "How many people will die tonight?" Robert asked. "Nobody will die today. Trust me," Daniel replied. The survivors reinforced their shelter by securing their bags tightly inside the wreckage to block out the cold. Huddling together, they spent the entire night awake, refusing to sleep. Now, we move on to the next day, where Noma, Robert, and their friends are making a plus sign so that if a plane passes by, they can be seen. Just then, they hear the sound of a plane again, but it flies past without noticing them. From the sound, it seems that the plane is farther away today than it was yesterday. Noma says, "We are holding on to false hope. The plane was farther away today than yesterday, which means they have already searched for us here but couldn't see us. We have to do something ourselves." Inside the plane, we see Arthur in terrible condition. His father had told him to take care of his mother and sister. His mother had already passed away, and his sister was severely injured. Noma starts crying, recalling how his father had tried to stop him from going, but he didn't listen and ended up on this plane. Days pass, their food supply is running out, and there is no sign of a rescue team. Now, even the plane has stopped passing by. Just then, a boy finds something, a suitcase. Upon breaking it open, they discover a radio inside. They try to turn it on, but it is frozen. The boy tries to fix it, sets the batteries properly, but they can't receive any signals. Robert then ties a wire to the radio and climbs onto the plane to get a signal. Meanwhile, inside the plane, Noma sits alone. He has stopped going outside. Suddenly, he hears loud cries and screams from outside. When Noma and NATO step out, they are horrified. The radio has picked up a signal, and they hear an announcement. "It has been 10 days since we started searching for the crashed plane, but we have found no signs of it. Due to the heavy snowfall, survival seems impossible. The search will resume after the snowfall ends because they are most likely dead under the snow, and searching now would be pointless." Everyone breaks down, crying and attacking each other in despair. This announcement means their death is now certain. They will suffer and die. Another passenger, Carmelo, has passed away. He was 23 years old. Inside the plane, they discuss repairing the plane's system so they can contact help. For that, they need batteries, which are in the plane's rear section. They plan to go there, but Robert warns, "That's impossible. If we reach there by evening, we will freeze to death." Noma replies, "If we do nothing, we will die anyway, so why not die trying?" Robert, Noma, and NATO decide to go, but hunger has already weakened them. Daniel asks, "What do we do now? Our hunger is unbearable." NATO responds, "The food is right here, yet we are searching for it." NATO, unable to control his hunger, says, "Whoever wants to join me, raise your hand. Even if you don't, I can't bear this hunger anymore. I am going to eat." Some other people, also starving, agree with NATO. They are so desperate that they have even started eating cigarettes from their pocket. After morning arrives, the three of them set out to search for the plane's wreckage. As they move forward, a lot of time passes, and the snow is so deep that their feet keep sinking. After walking some distance, they find a dead body. Noma says that this is Kasten's cousin, who had fallen out when the plane split into two. Robert carefully looks at the locket hanging around the body's neck, then breaks it off and takes it. They continue forward, but this time, Noma slips and almost falls. As evening approaches again, they must face another night in the freezing cold. NATO suggests that they take shelter behind a rock. Robert and Noma agree, saying that it's the best option. As night falls, they huddle together tightly and say to each other, "Keep hitting me so we don't freeze." The wind keeps howling, and the storm doesn't stop. By morning, snow has covered them. As soon as the sun rises, they try to move. Meanwhile, Daniel tells his friends that the temperature in that area will drop by another 20 to 30 degrees. They look around from the mountain and see nothing but endless peaks. Noma has injured his leg and says he can't walk any further, so they decide to turn back. As they return, Noma's condition worsens. His face begins to dry and wrinkle. All he wants is to go home. Noma insists that they must do something and reach the other half of the plane. In the evening, as they sit inside the wreckage and talk among themselves, they suddenly hear something falling outside. When they try to look out of the plane, a sudden avalanche buries the entire plane under the snow. They scream and panic, unsure whether to save themselves or others. People start digging through the snow to escape. The cold had already tormented them, and now the snow had trapped them again. Amid the chaos, a man cries out, out, "Don't go there. My wife is trapped under that snow. Get away." But in the panic, no one listens. As the snow melts, Daniel remains stuck in it and dies. The others try to get out of the plane, but another wave of melting snow buries them once again. They are trapped inside the plane. Someone asks, "How much snow is above us?" Another replies, "Probably not too much, because it's starting to melt. By morning, we'll be able to break through." One man insists, "We should start breaking the snow now so we can get out by morning." As soon as the sun rises, they break through the snow and finally escape. However, their plane is now completely buried. They realize that if they want to survive the cold, they must dig out the plane. This adds another challenge to their struggle. They work together and manage to uncover the wreckage. Now, they have been stranded here for 17 days. No one has come looking for them, and they have no way out. But there is one ray of hope. The snow has started melting. This is their last chance to find a way out. One of them, named Nato, believes that there are lush green valleys beyond the mountains. He practices walking in the snow for hours daily, convinced that those valleys in Chile are their only hope for survival. The next day, Roberto, Nando, and another boy decided to leave in search of help, knowing it would take time to reach their destination. Then the three set off on their journey. Nando, determined and hopeful, pushed forward despite the biting cold. With each step, he leaned on his stick and climbed higher. At one point, Roberto said, "We should stop here for the night. We won't find another place to rest ahead." So, they stayed there for the night. The next morning, they continued their trek and finally reached a point where all they could see were endless mountains. Roberto, losing hope, said, "We're done. We should turn back." But Nando refused, saying, "If I go back to the plane, I'll be walking into death. That's not happening. We've come this far. What's a little farther? Look at that valley beyond. I believe green fields of Chile lie just past those mountains. I'm not turning back now." Roberto argued that they only had food for a week, and crossing that valley would take at least 12 to 13 days. One of the boys decided to return to the crash site to conserve food for the rest. Roberto and Nando kept moving forward. Meanwhile, Roberto and Nando reached a dry, rocky mountain. When they sat down to eat, they realized even their remaining food had gone bad. They lit a fire to warm their hands. They walked to a nearby stream to fill bottles with water. While there, Roberto spotted a frog, then a man across the water, riding a horse. Overwhelmed with joy, they wrote on paper, "We are plane crash survivors. Please help." The man took the note and alerted a rescue team. Soon, helicopters were dispatched. Roberto and Nando were rescued and flown back toward the crash site to save the others. The media bombarded them with questions. How did you survive so long? But they were too weak to talk. When the helicopters finally reached the crash site, their friends were ecstatic, jumping and shouting with joy. Everyone was taken aboard and airlifted to safety. Roberto's camera, however, was left behind, perhaps a symbol of everything they endured. If Nando hadn't kept pushing toward the mountains, they might have all perished right there. After they returned home, they received medical treatment. But mentally, they were deeply affected by everything they had gone through and didn't want to meet anyone. They spent months in hospitals recovering. If you like this story, don't forget to like the video.